Hi, Ms. Patel.
Hi, Mr. Surface.
When you are annotating a paragraph or two, what sort of things do you do?
Well, the first couple things I do is I look out for words that I might not know, and I circle them. Another thing that I do is I look for questions that I might have about the text, or maybe a question I have to the author or narrator of the text.
Okay.
Something else I do is I make connections with the text. So that might be a connection that I have within the text. It might be something I'm connecting from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, or it might be a connection that I have directly to the text that involves a real world experience or a personal experience that I might be going through or having that might help me understand what's going on in the story.
So, basically, if you see a word you don't get, you circle it.
Yes.
If you have a question, you write a question mark and also write down the question, or do you just put a question mark?
I actually put down the question as well, because if I'm coming back to it, I want to know exactly why I put that question mark
Yeah, what
there.
were you thinking at the time?
What
That
was
makes
I
sense to me.
thinking
And then connections, I feel pretty clear with you. Do you write down the connection, or do
I
you just...
do. I'll put with.
Oh, life of a middle schooler. So connections, you write down the connections as well?
Yes, I write down the connections. Just something very quick, like a short little phrase. If I have a connection with the character and he reminds me of something back home, I just will write down a little plus sign and then a short little phrase to go along with that.
That's a great system. Would you mind taking us through paragraph 18 on page 354 and just kind of walk it through, and maybe I could try it as well?
Sure. So first I'm going to read through the paragraph. So he said, Dr. Niemer, I know Charlie is not what you had in mind as the first of your new breed of intellect. Couldn't get the word, Superman. But most people of his low ment are host and uncouth. They usually dull a path and hard to read. He has a good nature. He's interested and eager to please. Wow. Okay, so this paragraph is super confusing. First of all, I would go ahead and circle all the things that are confusing to me or words that I just don't understand.
Can I guess what a few of those might be?
Sure, go for it.
The one that throws me are intellect. I'll play it through you. This one here, uncouth.
Yes.
Have a good day, Mr. Surface and Ms. Patel.
You too.
I passed out.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're back up.
No, not really. What's up?
So those are some of the words that gave me a little bit of trouble. Are there any that I missed that you would have circled?
Grades 5 and 6, you are now dismissed. Grades 5 and 6, you are now dismissed.
No, I think you pretty much got all of them. Maybe this one, good nature. I mean, I understand what they're saying, but looking at it is confusing. And then I think to understand this paragraph, you really have to read the couple sentences before that. Then he told Dr. Niemer something I didn't understand. So while they were talking, I wrote down some of the words. So right off the bat, I feel like these are some of the words that he doesn't understand. And in the parentheses, I think it's very important to know what's in these parentheses right here. He couldn't get the word.
So that's context, right?
Yes,
A little bit of background that informs the information.
Right.
at
So
hand.
these are some context clues. A trick that I find very helpful is if I'm reading a part of a story and I'm not really sure what's going on, I will go back to the before that story or that part. I might go, no, I'm sorry. If there's a part of a story where I'm having a hard time understanding, I'll go to the part of the story before that or after that and kind of get some clues to what I'm trying to understand.
That seems pretty natural to me. So you first circle all the words you don't know or understand entirely. So even if you had a feeling that this were intellect or uncooperative or
Right.
apathetic
Right.
or hostile or which one is this? People of his low mental state, I'm assuming something like that.
Something along those lines. I would circle it anyways because it tells us something about the character or something that the author might be trying to tell us as the readers. we should be paying close attention to these words. They're spelled wrong for a reason. So I circle them from the get-go.
So I imagine this complements your questions for the author, or Charlie, in this case, the narrator.
Exactly. So some of the questions I might have are...
Well, let's go ahead and we can write them too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and write them. So maybe question about that. What does the author mean? What does author mean when he says, Charlie is not what you had in mind as the first of your new breed of intellect?
Of intellectual supermen, all right? I imagine that was supposed to be plural. And what to me, my connection for that one is, well, if this was published in 1965, well, that's really only 20-something years after World War II. So I would think that the sort of like the Superman thing or Supermen is a preoccupation of the 20th century, right?
That does make sense. And that's a connection I didn't make before. So thank you for sharing and writing that down.
All right. So do you have any other questions, either for narrator or author?
I think what does the author mean kind of is my question for the whole paragraph. But as the reader keeps going, I think it makes a little more sense that, the Charlie is not understanding what these big words that the doctors are saying. And I don't think, not just Charlie, but I don't think me as someone that's not a doctor would really understand what the doctors would be saying altogether.
So we're confused along with the narrator, which makes us feel for him a little bit more.
Exactly.
So if Mr. Surface or you or Ms. Moscovici were to ask a question about whether or not the point of view in a story makes the character more or less sympathetic, I would say in this case more, because the reader is forced to empathize with hearing a conversation that's so alienating.
Exactly. Yes, that makes sense.
Very cool. Can we try it with one more paragraph?
Yes, let's go
So
for
we're a
it.
little farther along in the story here. Charlie, to give you some context here, Charlie is invited to a party by his scheming coworkers, and they manage to get him drunk and sort of make fun of him. And then we know that he's starting to get a little bit more intelligent, so we're really paying attention to how he's feeling, what he's saying. So here in paragraph 78, would you mind walking me through your question, connection, mystifying words, annotation strategy?
So first, I'm going to read the paragraph. I didn't know what to do or where to turn. Everyone was looking at me and laughing, and I felt naked. So right away, I have a connection with that because I have felt this way before. And like you were saying earlier, it makes me sympathize and empathize with Charlie. I wanted to hide myself. I ran out into the street and threw up. Then I walked home. It's a funny thing, I never knew that Joe and Frank and the others liked to have me around all the time to make fun of me. So I think this is a aha moment.
Now what's that?
And I like to have a lot of aha moments when I read, and that means I'm realizing something, or maybe the narrator is realizing something that he or she may have not known before. And this would be a aha moment for Charlie, because Charlie is realizing that his coworkers, Joe and Frank,
are scheming on him.
are scheming on him and not his true friends. And I think that this is a big deal because in the beginning of the story and through the story, we see that they've done some not so nice things to him, but he didn't realize because maybe he has some problems following social cues. And so this is a big moment for Charlie in the story.
That sounds like a connection also within the text, right?
Right.
This is a connection to earlier. And also, if you've seen the movie, they do a lot with this. Like they sort of prank his locker. They put like bread dough and yeast in there. So
wow.
Earlier in text, and there's a connection to the film. It makes me think, wow, I would hate to be Charlie in this position, to suddenly learn that all my friends are just two-faced jerks.
Right.
Sorry to use that language, but it had to be said.
Right. I agree. And yeah, I think those would be my annotations. Something else to look at would be, hey, there aren't any words that I circled in this paragraph. So this could tell me about Charlie and his mental state, and maybe he is getting better.
Well, he's certainly using figurative language, right? He probably doesn't feel literally naked, but he feels ashamed.
Right. And in the beginning of the story, it was hard for him to tell anyone, even his doctors, how he felt, and he felt like he couldn't think or express feelings much. So there's a lot to be said in this little tiny paragraph.
I know that's right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.